Hey, yeah, before we start too.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
No, it's fine. That's fine.
Do you guys want to go through any of the questions that you had from last week as well?
I had like 3, and they were kind of, I answered them on my own, like on my own little live, just to try, because I'd never done like not live, but I mean a story, because I've never done a story before. And it was just 3 of them. I was like, they're not even really worth like super detail answering.
Yeah, totally. There were like, what did you have? You had like what, 30-ish from last week too, Joe, that you sent over to us. Like, do we want to go through all this week's and last week's? Because there's a lot that we could just answer really quickly.
It's up because I have them all pulled up here, so we can just roll through it. We can just like lightning round them if we need to, because like some of them are really stupid. Like what is the safest drug to stack on text? Does squatting greater than 800 make your PP huge? Like this
obviously,
shit. Like definitely. Wipe up, you fuck.
Maybe you would never know. Yeah. Some of them. Yeah, let's just go through all of them that you have from last week and this week, and some are going to be quick. If any of you guys want to like go through more in depth, we'll kind of click pause and go more in depth, because there was some that I know David will have like really good answers for, like that. There was like that sleep protocol. I can't remember what it was, but he's got like a couple of really awesome things on there. So yeah, I like it. Sounds good.
Wait, all right. I'm just Bree is also typing. Bree is also typing questions, just because she has some from like the female perspective that I'm sure we could touch on and whatnot. But
cool.
All right, I'm going. We're doing it.
Okay.
All right. Welcome everybody to the first of many meetings of the performance panel. Like I told these guys before we started recording, I am full of bullshit, and you are hearing all of it right now, because none of this is scripted. It never will be scripted, and I literally have no idea what the fuck we're doing, which leads me into the next part. Everything that comes after this is all hypothetical discussion. Neither myself nor Jake nor David condone any use of illegal substances or anything along those lines, because we are all loving and law-abiding citizens in the great state of Nevada, Utah, wherever the fuck you are, Dave. Montana? Wyoming? I don't know. Yeah. There you go.
It's all the same, right?
Cool. All right. So now that that's out of the way, I'm gonna fucking smoke this hypothetical bowl of marijuana.
CBD? Looks like CBD to me.
It's definitely CBD. Okay, but all this stuff basically came to a head really like just randomly. Jake, David, and I have just been like engaged in a variety of conversations, just talking about performance enhancing drugs and just strategies and techniques to make athletes better. Over the course of the past couple of months, Jake is actually doing my coaching and supplement and basically my life protocol currently, and I'm very excited about it. It's going very well, and I think he and I have a recipe for success that we're building together. But because of that, and because of a lot of the conversations that I've had with him and the conversations that I know he has had with David and that I have had with David, we are basically uncovering that a lot of people have no idea what the fuck is going on when it comes to supplementation and enhancement of their training. And because of that, we thought it would be a wise move to do our due diligence. And even though none of us are scientists, doctors, or medical professionals, we have a lot of anecdotal experience and a lot of educational experience when it comes to a lot of this stuff, whether it's supplementation, training, movement, or just anything that could relate to anybody who is an athlete. So we opened up the floor to the internet, basically randomly decided that we were going to do a podcast and put it on YouTube too. But this is the first of many. We're going to field a bunch of random fucking questions regarding performance enhancement, training, recovery, and anything else you can think of. And obviously the errant random question, because not one of my followers has any level of reading comprehension. And we're just going to get right into it. Well, actually, like Jake, David, introduce yourselves. I don't fucking know. People know who I am. They wouldn't fucking be listening if they didn't. It's fucking my goddamn Instagram and YouTube. I don't know. Wow.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jake.
Cool. Yeah, Jake Benson. I'm from Utah. Been powerlifting like 5 years or so. Gosh, been in school forever. Taking like just a lot of chemistry. I know a lot of chemistry basically. That's about all I have to say about that, I guess.
My name's David Herrera, and I've been powerlifting, doing some strongman, just anything that involves being strong and moving heavy shit for about 8 years. And I don't really have any formal education, but I do have a lot of people that have been doing this way longer than any of us, probably as long as some of us have been alive, that have taught me, ropes down as far as like, hey, this is kind of like the best practice of a lot of this type of stuff. And specifically like just stepping back and taking a big picture at why are you doing the things you're doing? And are you really needing to use that big of a hammer to get the things done type of thinking. So that's really where I come from as far as PED use and that sort of stuff.
Cool. So basically what you're telling me is the classical 3 grams of test per week might not exactly be the most efficacious dose that everyone needs. And that shouldn't be the first cycle we all hop on.
No, definitely not. Well, even the very first cycle that I'm sure every single one of us in here have heard is, 500 milligrams of test. That's your first cycle. That's what you stick with and go at it. I'm like, I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm just saying, does that actually accomplish what you want to accomplish? The details matter essentially.
Yep, absolutely. So if you guys are satisfied with that, basically what we're saying is, Jake, but all of us have a great deal of actual training and training experience and exposure to this stuff for a long time. Some of us longer than others. I have a kinesiology, biomechanics, exercise science background. Jake has the chemistry background, and David has been around people that are smarter than all of us combined 4 times over for about as long as I have been alive, most likely. So in an ideal world, we can actually accomplish some stuff and get some questions answered and basically help people avoid some of the dumb shit that even I have done when I started using performance enhancement at 20 years old. So to the point that you were making, Dave, let's just start running through some of these questions. The Thugzaddy89, which is an incredible Instagram handle, asked me, and this is kind of to your point, Dave, like the first cycle, because it seems like this guy is pretty much a novice. He says, what is the safest drug to stack on test?
Stack on test?
Yeah.
Well, so that's where the details matter. So this is what I would say. Okay. Are you a power lifter? Are you at the top of your weight class? Are you at the bottom of the weight class? That's going to make huge differences with, so let's just say hypothetical, because we don't know much about him. So let's just say he's in the middle of his weight class and he can afford to gain actual tissue and water weight and whatnot. At that point, I would say the thing that you're going to want is things that bring volume. I would stay away from orals in general, unless you become advanced enough that you can take advantage of them. Generally speaking, from a health aspect. So I would say things that bring fullness, things that bring a lot of glycogen retention, DECA comes to mind. And if it's your first cycle, you don't need 300 milligrams of DECA a week, or even, I'm talking 100 milligrams, 150 on top of your testosterone. That's going to bring volume. You have the flip side of that. Somebody who's already at their weight class and maybe 3 or 4 pounds above it, they're not going to want DECA. You're going to want something that brings just muscular contraction ability with the least amount of water retention. Now you're talking something like a Mastron or a Primobolan, things like that. I would use orals once you start getting more advanced and you kind of start stacking more. Like you have 2 injectables and an oral. Now we're talking, and you need to use that oral strategically to give you the best bang for your buck, because you can't run it for 12 weeks straight. Or well, you can do whatever the hell you want.
You shouldn't
run it for 12 weeks straight. at 100 milligrams every day. But yeah, then you start getting more strategic about where you place your orals and how much you're going to take, etc. That's a quick way of how I would think about that type of situation.
And to that point, this is kind of how I figured like this entire thing would go. I'm not anticipating getting through all these questions, because what you said right there, that brought up something that I wanted to touch on, and that me and Jake have actually been having a lot of conversations about, is like the difference in the attributes of some of these drugs that we're taking, or know that people are taking. The ones that are going to bring about like more water retention, more like fluid volume, like it just make the muscles and you bigger. But there's a lot to say about the neurological side of steroids and performance enhancing drugs that not a lot of people think about, because there are a lot of compounds that bring about, like what's that very basic word that everyone talks about, what like you attribute noob gains to it. It's like basically it's like proprioceptive awareness, like basically your neurological connection to your muscles, just building mind muscle connection. And that happens at a very young point, or a young point in the person's training career. Some of these drugs can actually enhance that, like Masteron, DHB, Trenbolone to a certain extent, like basically like make you work harder, even, and it's how a lot of individuals, along with proper training and nutrition and like protocols and whatnot, they can stay in the same weight class and continue to get stronger, but they're not putting muscular tissue on. You don't have, like, every 600-pound bencher doesn't have an 80-inch chest. They can be a 220, a 242, who is dense and hard and strong and muscular, but they just know how to use those muscles very, very well. And sometimes these drugs play a role in that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Big time.
I would also throw in there, as far as like, PEDs that you can use, it depends on the person's age as well, and their health, because you don't even necessarily have to go down the androgen route, right? Like there are a lot of things that you can throw in there that you can get a really big benefit. Like and David's really big into this as well, is using insulin. Like insulin can have a huge benefit, helping you learn, helping you have better motor unit control, a million different things you can use it for. So don't even necessarily look for, it has to be an androgen, it has to be a steroid. There are a lot of like what you could call ergogenic aids that are going to give you a huge performance enhancing boost, but not necessarily have to be the hammer that androgens can be.
Yeah, and that's something that I really wanted to talk about too, because not like I have a lot of people asking me about like the variety of things that I recommend from like Amino Asylum or wherever else, but it's basically just the fact that I've, over the past 6 months or so, basically like ever since you've recommended me look into all this stuff, Jake, is how vocal I've been about like my use of carnitine, choline, insulin, growth hormone, just the variety of things that sort of, they're not androgenic. They're not the steroids that are going to get like put your body into the position where you're like not destroying yourself, but just burning a little bit too hot, like being on trend for like 12 months, some crazy shit like that. It's you can do a lot by taking these things that aren't exactly commonly thought of in the average power lifter or average bodybuilder's realm, but it can absolutely put you one step ahead of that individual who is taking 3 grams total per week plus their orals, but then not even looking at insulin or growth or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because carnitine's just going to make that androgen work better in the first place. Like you throw in a bunch of carnitine and that testosterone's going to work better on its own.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Go, Dave.
I was going to bring something up. I mean, we all didn't grow up, at 15 years old taking PEDs, or at least I don't think so.
Yeah.
but how did you get, yes, you were getting bigger, but you didn't like put on 60 pounds of muscle between 15 and 20 years old, but somehow you still got stronger. How did that happen? It happened with your neurology. It happened with your willingness to drive into the weights. It happened with your coordination, all of those types of things. And there are drugs out there that facilitate all those different aspects of training that have nothing to do with your testosterone value, because as in essence, ever since you hit puberty, you know, when you were 16, 17 years old, your testosterone value has been the same until you started taking PEDs, but somehow you were still getting the gains and all that type of stuff. And that has a lot more to do with all this other stuff that we're talking about, that doesn't put pressure on the androgen receptor directly, but it amplifies the effects of the androgen receptor globally, and sometimes at a energy level, and sometimes at a nervous system level. So all of those types of things, if used correctly, can add up to, you know, sometimes taking less than 800 milligrams of androgens, but you're getting the benefit as if you were taking closer to 2 grams compared to other people. Especially when it comes to realizing the training effects and not being so trashed, and literally just overall functioning internally better.
Absolutely, because one of the biggest things, and I know I buy, like everything that I put out, I bias towards like the actual training and like biomechanics, movement, like that type of thing. But to that statement right there still holds true with something that I say in regards to individuals like training protocols. It's not about what you can do, it's about what you can recover from. So if you can use compounds or use supplements or use whatever that basically make your gear more effective, so it puts that like that introductory cycle where it's like 500 milligrams of testosterone, but it makes it feel and react like you're on 2 grams total, or you get the individual that blows up and they're like, what the fuck happened? He had to have been taking this and this and this and this. And it's like, no, he just responded really well because of this and this and this. It just puts him in a position, or puts him or her in a position to not do the most, but get the most out of what they're doing.
And yes,
and to that point, I would really stress that something that people don't realize is those androgens that you're taking cause stress to the body. They are causing stress. When you're talking about what you can recover from, that is absolutely what we're getting at here, is that if you can, everyone can go take 2 grams, but if it's causing you so much stress, you can't even recover from it. That's useless. And so why not lower that and use all these things to make it better?
Absolutely. It's the same story of the individual who's like taking all this trend and they feel so goddamn strong all the time, but then they're like, oh shit, I can only sleep 2 hours a night. And this is working for the first 1 or 2 weeks that I'm on trend, but oh God, now I'm getting under recovered. I need to blast more drugs because I'm getting into the meat and I need to be stronger. And then they're sleeping less. And then it's this fucking ongoing thing of, oh my God, I need to recover, add more drugs, but not actually amplify the recovery that I need.
And then you tear your patellar tendon off or something stupid.
Yeah. or your bicep tendon or whatever.
Or whatever. Yeah.
But so this is an unrelated question, but this kind of follows along with what we're speaking about. But what's his name? Patrick McGuire, who's an incredibly large and strong motherfucker, squats damn near 1,000 pounds. I don't know if he's hit that yet. Benched 635 in a meet in flame crocs, and deadlifted probably less than that. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But he asked, is it more beneficial to get in 1 more meal or 2 hours more of sleep? I would say 2 more hours of sleep.
That's Absolutely. Not even a question to me. Yeah, 2 hours of 100%. Sleep.
Yeah.
I can't even think of a reason the other way.
Yep. So that I just kind of wanted to touch on that. Sleep is your recovery. Food is great, but sleep is greater. Sleep is makes it makes what you're doing do more.
Yeah, well, unless you're like 6% further. Fat.
Yeah, even further, like, so yeah, it's your recovery, it's healing, that sort of stuff. But some people don't really go as far as like, how does that affect your nervous system? So like, let's put it this way, motor pattern ingrainment and all of that stuff happens when you sleep. So getting better and more efficient at a lift literally requires sleep. So you might be strong as hell, but if you can't get in the right groove, all of a sudden that extra pop, that extra little bit that you're looking for at the meet isn't going to be there, especially if you're training appropriately, but you're sleeping shitty.
Yep. So get your fucking sleep, kids. That's the takeaway out of that one.
Yeah. And if your freaking androgens are impacting your sleep, it's not worth it.
Absolutely. Like 1,000%. Okay. Detailed explanation of what blood work to get and worrisome markers on/off cycle.
This is a great one for David.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass that one on to him.
Right. Yeah. Well, as far as blood markers to get, so you're going to want your basic CBC for sure, CM and CMP. So that's a complete blood metabolic panel and the complete blood panel. So one's metabolic, one's blood. What that's going to tell you is what's going on with your blood specifically, because those are really kind of like, you know, everybody looks at testosterone or your liver values and stuff like that. And I mean, that's okay, but those aren't things that are going to kill you today.
Your blood will kill you today. That's what you should be worried about.
Right, exactly. So, you know, if your hematocrit comes back like super freaking high, like closer to 60 or more, you know, I've seen more. But it's like, we need to, like, you need to go and donate blood. They probably won't take it if it's that high. So that's how bad this is. So if your hematocrit's hanging out, you know, 58, 60 on your blood test, it's so bad that if you go to donate blood, they're not even going to take your blood. So you have to figure out a way to drain it or get, you know, make friends with an EMT or a nurse or something and get that drained, because that can kill you literally the next time you go in and train. You might throw a clot, and next thing you know, you have an aneurysm or a pulmonary embolism or something like that. So hematocrit is a big one to watch out for, especially if you're running a lot of center column drugs. That's what I call testosterone and all of its direct derivatives. And then you have the DHT column and you have the nandrolone column. Anything in the middle is going to amplify red blood cell proliferation, and that's going to directly impact hematocrit.
So people that are running like a ton of Anadrol, like Anadrol was literally made to bring up your hematocrit. Like that was literally its medical purpose. So all you guys that have run Anadrol like crazy, this is for you.
Yeah,
it's why you turn purple. Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. Yep. It's why you turn purple. Or people that run, you know, a gram of testosterone or more and stuff like that. It's going to do the same thing. So if you're in those types of drugs, the crucial thing that you're going to look for is hematocrit. That's something that can kill you today. The next thing that I like to look at is your potassium values. And this has more to do with like auxiliary drugs that you might be using, like maybe you're using a diuretic because you have so high of freaking blood pressure or something along those lines, and you want to keep an eye on your potassium level to make sure it doesn't get out of whack so that you don't have a heart arrhythmia, that sort of stuff. So potassium is another crucial one to look at. And as far as like what you get on your first panel, so I just go to Life Extension and order it myself, and I just get their comprehensive weight loss panel. It's going to have pretty much everything in there that you want to keep track of over the long haul, as far as like your regular blood work. There are other places in there that include a little bit more or a little bit less, like things to want to know, but not necessarily things that are part of your health. So another one is going to be your C-reactive protein. You want to keep track of that, especially with heavy training. And that goes back to, are you using too much shit? Even though you might feel okay, your C-reactive protein will go up. And that's going to, that directly tells you that you're having high amounts of stress, because it's a inflammatory marker that's going up for some reason or another, whether that's training or drugs. That's where you got to, find that out yourself. So those are the three things that I like to look at acutely. And then the things that I look at background, like from blood work to blood work to blood work, is going to be the things that most people know about. Your liver enzymes, your cholesterol, your fasted insulin level, especially with bigger guys that are eating a shit ton of food, or even people that aren't necessarily big, but they're just eating that much damn food because they're not meant to be as big as they are. Fasted insulin is a good one to track for health purposes long term.
Yeah, that's really good. And that answers another question that somebody asked was, do I have to go to my doctor, I think, or something like that to get my blood work? No, you don't. There are a few websites, like Life Extension is one, where you can order your blood work. It gets sent to a lab. They go pull your blood. It gets sent to you, doesn't get sent to your doctor. They're relatively cheap. It's like $200 to $300 for a really pretty comprehensive panel. And then you can have somebody like David look over it if you don't know how to read it. And David's really good at it. He's done it a lot. He'll
I take consult calls for that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was going to lead into saying. Like, anybody who's listening this far, like, just DM Jake, David, or I, and like these guys use Life Extension. I use private med labs. It's a little bit cheaper. It gets all the same shit as long as you pick those biomarkers and basically just get the stuff that you need to see. Then you can easily set up a consult call with David and just go over it. I basically, anytime I get blood work, I send it to Jake and I send it to David, because they know I know the basics. I know, like, hey, that's out of whack, but I know that you guys know that if, like, hey, this is out of whack, or this is this level, but I wouldn't think to look at it like something to do with potassium or electrolytes or something. That's like, if that's out, then that means this might be this because of this. Let's add this in or take this out or something. So yeah, that's why you have resources, everybody. That's why you just fucking ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't know how many times here just recently diagnose is a big word because I'm not a doctor, but I have advised people on, like, oh, look at your insulin fasted value, look at your glucose, and look at your A1C. They're all within range. None of them are shown. They all say normal on the sheet, but I'm like, hey, this is the sign of pre-diabetic before you're even pre-diabetic. Check these markers out. This is what's happening. This level is here and this level is here. If they move just a little bit more, now you're going to be pre-diabetic. So then we start implementing protocols to counter that before it even showed up out of range on their blood work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't wait to actually have a problem. Like, get on top of it before it gets there. Because once you actually get like pre-diabetic or diabetic, it sucks. It's tough.
Absolutely. So another thing that I wanted to touch on, because I have Brianni here, who has her own podcast called Big Clit Energy. And as funny as the title is, I'm assuming a lot of ladies would like to avoid that outcome using performance enhancing drugs. But I got a couple of them because she sent a couple of her people to ask questions. One of the most common was, why do women always choose anavar as their first steroid? Why? What is it about anavar?
Okay, I think if you're okay with me answering that, I would take it. It's actually different in every country. For the United States, anavar is what became very popular, and so the people that are asking that are obviously from the United States. If you go to the UK, it's usually T-ball. Or maybe that's Australia. It's just different everywhere you go. But anavar was one of the first that they found to have a low virilizing effect compared to testosterone as well. Like, there are better options, but it's mostly because it became popular in the United States first.
That's
really
exactly
simple
right.
as that.
Yeah, it's exactly that. So it became popular, and then, just like it is anywhere else, somebody told somebody, and now everybody that's what we do.
And I want, because you guys are very scientific and by the book. This is why this dynamic is fantastic, because it's like, oh, it got popular, blah 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 blah. And yes, that is true. I know that's true. But what's the one thing about goddamn anavar as compared to a couple of other things that might be better options for power lifters or for bodybuilders or whatever compared to others? It's a fucking oral. You can pop the pill. I can put this shit in my mouth and feel a little bit more okay with what I am. And I'm like, I'm not, like, this isn't cheating or like some weird moral swaying towards one way or the other, because like, I'm disappointing. Yeah, I'm disappointing my grandma, who always called me a hard worker, but now I'm taking fucking steroids. It's easier to justify and be okay with popping a pill than it is putting a fucking needle in your ass.
Yeah, that it goes into like the justification thing, but I find that most women are completely okay with that if they are like on board with it. The question is when the actual injection, like, they're like, oh, I've never injected anything before. You know, just like all of us, you know, like when we very first started, it's like, oh, this is going to hurt, you know, or whatever.
You're shaking like a leaf.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But women are more along the lines of like, oh, I'm small, so it's going to hurt even more. And I'm going to have to do this frequently. So it's going to hurt like all the time. She's that whole mental block stops a lot of women just right then and there, even though there are better options that are injectable, both better for anabars is pretty soft on the liver, but there's reasons why the way I choose anabolics, or it is specifically anabolics for women, is one of two things. How long do they need to be on to realize their goal, whatever they're going after? And how quickly of an onset do they need for it? So if it's longer, lower, and slower, and their goal is nice and big, it benefits you to just be on longer. But you can't do that with an oral. I mean, you shouldn't do that. I always got to refrain because there's people that just do some crazy shit. So anyway, you shouldn't do that with an oral, and you shouldn't do that with something that's not your own base hormone, because just like men,
Yes.
women have their own testosterone. Testosterone turns into lots of different things that you need for your body to function correctly. When you start taking any androgen, it'll shut down your own testosterone production, just like it does with a man, or at least diminish it significantly. And almost anything that's non-virilizing or non-center column drug, like anavar, does not turn into all of those other constituents that testosterone turns into. So now, if your time frame is for 3 months, I don't actually have any testosterone in my body, and I'm just depending on this anavar, my body is not going to be making enough DHT. It's not going to be making enough estrogen, because women still have aromatase enzymes that turn testosterone into estrogen. So you're putting you're suffering from those other downstream hormones because the anavar is not turning into those things.
Yep. No, that's well said. So like all those girls that, you know, have run the year-long anavar cycle, that, you know, if you look at your blood work and your estrogens, crap.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that, right? Like that is exactly why. You do still need a little bit of actual testosterone, and you will, like, ruin a lot of things.
Yeah. So, I mean, this isn't advice for anybody. So like people on the high end, like women on the higher end, or people that have already essentially done some kind of a damage that way, I do support the idea of women using testosterone as a direct testosterone replacement. And they only use their anabolic, like anavar, if that's what they chose to do. I personally would choose something more specific. If they were a power lifter, for example, I would choose something like DHB. You know, if you're going to run an anabolic, you might as well run an anabolic that's going to produce a lot of strength gains, because the risk factors are mainly the same. The way you control for risk is how much time you're on. If you limit the time that you're on, you run into less risk. So as far as like voice changes, hair, clit growth, that sort of stuff. Especially because you're already one-upping yourself by bringing as a woman, bringing your testosterone to the upper level of most women. It's like they won the genetic lottery. So now all of a sudden, the women that are using a little bit of testosterone replacement and putting it at the top of the range, they're going to perform and recover already better, like if they are enhanced, but they're not going to run into the same issues as a virilization and stuff, because their body is seeing that it's a natural hormone and seeing that it's still in the natural range.
And the biggest thing, I was just going to touch on the biggest thing with that is because even if it is a replacement dose, because it is the same hormone that is produced in the body, the biggest thing to focus on is it converts into everything else that normal hormone converts into. So rather than running like an extended cycle where there is no conversion, and then you have women who literally have no estrogen and still on the upper end of testosterone for women, but on the lower end of men. I had an individual that I spoke to the other day, and I basically said that you turned yourself into a pubescent little boy. Like, it's basically like you're on the lower end of man, but you have no estrogen, and you're on the higher end of woman, and it's like, No wonder you have all this acne. No wonder your voice has changed slightly. No wonder you're experiencing all these negative things that everybody told you wouldn't experience because it's just anavar.
Right.
But this, what people don't think about the cascade of effects that happens because it's we're taking hormones from outside the body and putting them in. And unless we do it in accordance with our body's like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It starts to change.
one
It
last,
starts to change.
absolutely. Yeah. And one last thing just to throw in there, especially during this time right now, and I've kind of talked to David about this just the other day, is anavar right now is by far the most faked steroid out there. And it's not even close. And a lot of that has to do with a supply chain shortage where it is very difficult to make, they make anavar from either testosterone or from DHT. And that process is very difficult without some chemicals that are in short supply. So anavar was already faked like crazy before this whole pandemic happened. It is crazy faked right now. So be very, very careful about where you are getting that, because most likely it is not legit.
Yeah, if you are taking anavar right now, or you buy any new anavar within the last like 3 to 6 months, it make sure that it's anavar, because there's a higher likelihood than ever that it isn't.
Yeah.
And there are
absolutely.
places you can send to test that, aren't there, David?
Yes.
I think Broderick's talks about that too. And
there's a place, there's a few places you can send a test for that. I'm trying to think of the lab. If I think of it, I'll send it, but it's in the UK, and you just send your stuff off and they'll test it. Now, there's easier ways to test that. Like if you send it to this lab, not only are they going to tell you what it is, they're also going to tell you the dosage. So if it was correctly dosed and all that. But there's a simpler way. You can just buy a kit called Roid Test off of like Dave Palumbo's site or something like that. And that actually, you just crush up your pill or inject a little bit of the thing. That will just tell you that it is anavar or is not anavar, but it's not going to tell you the dosage or how pure it is or any of that. So
at least do that though. At least do that.
Especially bare minimum. Bare minimum. Yeah.
Yeah. If guys accidentally don't take anavar, they'll live. But
but if girl, I know a female that thought she was taking anavar, but it turned out to be D-ball, and it was a bad time.
Yeah.
Very quickly. Yeah.
Well, and that brings me to my, the first point where I said, if you have lofty goals, or if you're just know that your time frame is long and you're going to be on for a long time, testosterone is almost very rarely faked. And if it is fake, you're just getting bunk shit. Like they're not going to give you a different steroid.
It's the cheapest.
Yeah, it's the absolute cheapest, which then goes back, you don't even need to test it, because you can take it for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and then you go get your blood work done, and there it is. Hey, I'm at the level that I wanted to be at, or I'm a little bit higher. I need to cut back on my doses a little bit, and you can modulate that. You can even you don't have to depend on somebody else telling you how much to take, because you can literally get your blood work done and be like, oh, I'm right perfect where I need to be. My dosage is excellent. So that's the dosage that I stick to. And it'll be individual, tailored to that individual. I know women that literally 1 milligram a week of testosterone puts them at the upper range of a woman. I know other women that is like 7 milligrams a week, and that puts them, that's a huge difference, but we can verify it through blood work. That's the beauty of what I like about testosterone for women, to get them that little bit of an edge just all year round. And then when it comes time to, put the hammer down 6 weeks out from a meet, then it's like, okay, what do we need? Or not even just a meet. Like I deal with women that are physique athletes, and even strongman women and powerlifters. So it really depends on what they're lacking at that point, as far as how I construct what they want to use for 6 weeks.
Right. And so for girls that are considering using testosterone as a replacement, start on an extremely low end, because like David and I have personally seen a female take like 2 milligrams a week and just went crazy. I think it was like a 200 level testosterone from
that was at 3.
It's almost unbelievable.
Yeah, 3 milligrams.
You're right.
3 milligrams a week.
Another girl run 20 a week, which made no sense how she didn't virilize it. She got nothing. So like start very low, go get your blood work done, make sure you're in that range, whatever that range is. Going to be a little different for everybody, but start very, very low, and don't use a cream. also, by the way, don't use a cream.
Yeah. Yes.
The cream sucks.
Yeah.
It will
Cream or
convert more
pills
to
are
DHT.
a no-go. Yeah.
Yes.
Just get the injectable. That way, when you measure it, the measurement you took is the measurement that goes inside your body.
Yes. The cream will actually convert more of the testosterone into DHT. So it interacts with an enzyme that converts it to DHT more. And you will get more virilizing effect from a cream than you will from the injection. So get over your fear of the injection. If you want to go the replacement therapy route, go the injection.
Yeah, well, and that's for a reason as far as the cream goes, because most creams were made for men, and DHT for a man is that's what makes you feel like a man. You see what I mean? So that they made, or that conversion happens for a reason with a cream, but for a woman, that's bad news.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not saying that every woman who is using PEDs or considering PEDs should immediately go into testosterone replacement therapy.
No, yeah.
Because there's a lot of better alternatives. It's just this, it's kind of, it gets to be like, a lot of women have that fear of injection. A lot of women have like the fear to take that step, but like it's just kind of focusing on the point that like that isn't it's not the end all be all. Like you can do that in a very, very responsible manner if you do it in accordance with your blood work, while doing consultation calls, while doing it under the supervision of someone who can actually make some calls to avoid those downstream like virilizing effects that most individuals want to avoid. And like what would you guys say in your opinion would be like let's say they're not going the TRT route. Mm-hmm. Let's say their old coach told them anavar was the only way to go, but they were like, I don't know, I want to figure something out. Like what's a better option than anavar if for a power lifter?
Yeah. We're both probably gonna say the same thing. I would start with NPP, Nandrolone, as far as like the safest.
It would be a toss up for me, depending on whether they're already a very very stocky woman for their weight class versus a very stringy woman for their weight class. So the stocky woman, I would go with something with a DHB. I would go with a DHB just purely for they don't need extra mass. They don't need extra volume or cross-sectional area because they already have short limbs. And what they need is more neurological drive. Where a woman that's a little bit more stringy, I would go with something like NPP, because what's going to give them more oomph is going to be more cross-sectional area to fill out that stringy frame. So I would go with something like NPP. And both of these, again, if you're not on testosterone replacement or you're doing it for an event, you time this out to keep the time frame as short as possible. I would not go to I'm starting my prep now, I'm 12 weeks out, let's start taking this. No. Time it out. You want your peak dosage to be coming in right at the meet, and you want to scale back 4, maybe 5 weeks. If you are this is your first time doing it, I would err closer to 4 weeks. If you're pretty experienced and you've done some anabolics leading into meets, and you know that you respond, you don't start to get like deepening of the voice or like hair loss or anything until like the 6-week mark. Then you'd start to stretch that out to 5 weeks or 6 weeks, and then immediately cut it off once you come in there. So some women will get away with a longer cycle of 6 weeks before they start to experience any side effects. And some women start to experience that right at week 3. So then they know, hey, 4 weeks or 3 weeks is my maximum amount of time allowed on. And for women like that, that's almost beneficial, because then they're 12 weeks out and we go, hey, this 3-week block is going to be hard as hell right here at the beginning of your mesocycle. So let's put it there. You got 3 weeks there. Now, 3 weeks in the middle is going to be another really hard training block. Let's put 3 weeks there. And now, hey, 3 weeks right at the tail end, right next to your meet. Boom, 3 weeks there. So now you piled together shit that makes sense for your particular individual response to drugs. Now, somebody who can take it for 6 weeks, I would say, you probably don't need a front load a cycle of a 12-week training block. with your anabolics. Let's just use it all on the second half where it's all going to matter because you respond in a way that lets you take them for a little bit longer.
Yeah, basically, like, to sum up what he's saying is, no, like, have a purpose for what you're doing. Like, if you're training this way, like, you pick a drug, like, you don't just take a hammer to screw in a screw, right? You don't just freaking nail that screw until it just goes in. Like, you have a tool. There's all these tools to use, and you don't just always have to use a hammer. Like, know why you're using a tool.
Yeah,
Yep.
and so that would be my anabolics side for a woman. And here would be my default for any woman. Like, let's just say they're not taking any PEDs, but they want to dip their toe. Okay, I would start with growth hormone for a woman. Absolutely.
I would throw in like metformin with that as well.
Yep, metformin, growth hormone, and then if they have a coach or somebody knowledgeable, I would throw an insulin in there. Those three things, they can run them year round appropriately without any side effect, for sure, on the masculinizing side. And then if they know how to couple it with training and couple it with their eating, they can lose fat, gain muscle all at the same time while just training hard and eating intelligently while taking these drugs without running any risk of any virilization.
And most girls are going to get a ton out of that before you don't even need to start an androgen.
Because what does insulin push really, really hard? It's that motor learning aspect. And where can women really fucking rock the fuck out? That goddamn aspect if they maximize it. But before we fucking talk about that, I wanted to just say, do you guys realize like how flipped on ahead the majority of like what is the powerlifting social sphere is going to be as soon as someone starts talking about this? Because the common recommendation is always anavar, and if the insulin will kill you, don't you guys know that?
Yeah, I know. God,
will kick your door down, rape your wife, and shoot you in the head. You know, it's
you'll have a stroke right on the spot.
It's this crazy fucking thing, and it's like, if it's so goddamn dangerous, why can someone go to Walmart and just fucking buy it? If it's so goddamn dangerous, why do so many individuals get it prescribed to them by a doctor? Like, it is a very useful tool when it is done responsibly, just like any other medication, any other supplement on the face of the fucking planet. I've never understood the demonization of it, especially because my mom, well, this is actually kind of pertinent. It was my mom's second birthday yesterday. She got a kidney and pancreas transplant. She was a type 1 diabetic. So I grew up around it. My mom has always used it. It's never been like a foreign word to me. So then when I go into powerlifting and bodybuilding and whatever, and I hear somebody be like, "Oh, I'll never touch insulin. I'll never touch that. I won't touch that." You know, it's like you go to the party and you smoke a little weed, and then somebody busts out fucking coke, and it's like, "Oh no, never that. I can't go, not that far. Just
except this time it's like the opposite, where people are like, I'll run 500 milligrams of tren, but 5 units of
it's like, I'm never gonna smoke weed. I'll fucking rail lines all night. Hell yeah, buddy.
What some of my first PEDs were diabetic drugs. Metformin and insulin was some of
best way to start.
Was my introduction to PEDs.
And it works because I've always been like you. I'm very transparent with my use. I started off very, very stupid. I did the whole more is better, just stay on for forever and fuck myself for a while. But now, after getting to talk with smarter individuals, learning from my mistakes, getting the blood work back where you look at it and you're like, ugh, oh shit. And it's like, oh, we got to do something here. Yeah. I'm actually like utilizing the stuff that we're talking about. I'm like right now, currently, very moderate dose of testosterone, like what you would call a cruise dose, paired with metformin, insulin, growth hormone, and supplementation with L-Carnitine and Choline injected morning and evening. And I feel fucking great. I feel like I'm walking around the gym and I'm training as hard as I am. I feel like that classical, like I'm on 2 grams of fucking gear cycle guy that feels like a god in the gym. I feel absolutely fantastic. And it's the littlest I've taken in God knows how long.
Yeah. It makes a huge difference when you know how to put things together, because it starts becoming this 2 + 1 = 3 type of scenario where you're augmenting not just your androgen, but your mental state. You're augmenting your energy production state. So now all of a sudden you can put out more in the training session, you can recover from more in the training session, and you're feeling fantastic mentally. It's just, starts to really add up, even though you're not taking as much, androgens as you would have before. It really is one of those things. And women, like, I'll tell you this, women will catch on to this and they will blow men apart because they know how to think a little bit better and be a little bit more cautious with, like, hey, we need to, like, do this smarter by default, because if they don't, they run into issues.
And you just fucking wait, motherfucker. Because, Jake, why am I freaking out about this?
I have no idea. I don't know what you're thinking right now.
You goddamn mother, play into my fucking drama, goddamn you. Who are we fucking collaborating together with on coaching, dumbass?
Dude,
I know where this is going.
Who is sitting next to me? This fucking idiot. Just watch, motherfuckers. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we are gonna see some crazy stuff happen over the next year. We will see some crazy stuff with the girl that's sitting next to you right there, and with Hunter. It is going to be crazy.
I was gonna be the girl that's sitting next to me, and then the girl that needs to get the fuck out of Kansas goddamn city.
It should be sitting there next to you. Yeah, it's gonna be wild. It's going to be very wild to see, because there are so many things that seem to be unknown that we're going to be taking advantage of it. It's going to be really cool.
Yep, absolutely. So that I really wanted to touch on that, because, like, I know there are a lot of women out there that have been, honestly, like, it's been cool to see Bree speak so freely about it and get the conversation going with, like, the common individual in powerlifting these days. But the big thing with that is people are asking questions and they really have no idea what to even ask. So I appreciate the conversation. That's one thing that I thought would be really, really cool.
Yeah, and just to sum up, I guess, for all females that are listening, or guys that are coaching females, sorry about the dogs. Start with some, like, if you've never done your PEDs before, metformin, growth, and insulin. Those should be the three things that you start with. And if you can get some injectable carnitine, that should be your next thing. You should be utilizing those before you start androgens at all.
Absolutely. You'll be miles ahead of everybody else, both in enhancement of your actual training and preservation of your body.
Absolutely.
Femininity, however you define femininity.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what else? How about, let's talk about peptides. I have a couple of people asking me about peptides, whether it's BPC 157, TB 500, like the MK677, and the variety of things that aren't actually peptides, but you can get on peptide sites.
Okay.
Basically, somebody's like, what peptides do you use and think anyone on PEDs should use? How effective are BPC and TB for injury healing, et cetera, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So technically insulin and growth are peptides, so I'd say both.
And you can get those anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
Well, except for growth hormone, but insulin, you can literally go to Walmart and get it. But no, as far as the peptides you're talking about, I would say they're beneficial, but they are totally, so, like, here's another thing that is kind of proliferated is I'm going to use TB 500 and BPC 157 prophylactically for the next 2.5 years or however long I'm competing. That is a no-no, because you got to understand what the hell they're doing. What they're doing is they're proliferating blood vessels, and they're proliferating cells to turn into whatever. Like, they essentially, this is what I'm getting at. They're not just going to fix your broken elbow or your messed up knee. They're going to fix any damage that happens anywhere. So if you're already a very lazy piece of crap and you have heart issues, or you have heart stress, that's injury to your body, they are going to enhance getting a larger heart. So they're going to make it easier for you to get a larger left ventricle than if you weren't taking them. I'm not saying don't take them. I'm saying don't take them by default, because you can't control how much stress or not stress is on your heart or other things like that, like your lungs or other things like that. So they're indiscriminate helpers of healing. When you have an actual injury, I guess, do what you got to do to heal it. Will they help? Absolutely. Do not go, oh shit, this is a miracle, I'm just going to stay on it forever. Now, do I implement prophylactic use of them? Absolutely. So the way I do that is in the off season, you're done. You're in rebuilding phase. You're doing a lot more cardio and you're relaxing and you're not beating up your body. That's a time to heal your body. You're going to do it for maybe 5-6 weeks or something like that. So at that point in time, if you didn't incur an injury in your training, that's perfect. That's good on you. Now, prophylactically, let's heal your tendons and ligaments because you're not loading them heavy anymore. And you're essentially doing a lot of cardiovascular work and getting a lot of blood flow through your body. So increase your insulin use, either diuretically, so you're going to eat a lot of carbohydrates, or exogenously, start taking some insulin. And that's where you want to insert TB500, BPC157, because they work better when there's a lot of insulin around to bind up more growth hormone. And if you're taking growth hormone, it's only going to make them work better. And you're not damaging your body by your training at that point in time. So I prophylactically use them maybe once or twice a year on 6-week blocks, coupled strategically where you should actually be healing before you start your next big loading phase.
Yeah, I know people that actually have heart issues from literally running BPC and TB on a year-long basis. And also, if you keep using that, you can actually make your injury a little bit more brittle, and you can be more susceptible to injury too. So running that just every time you get a little tweak, don't do it, especially like if you're going to keep loading it heavy. You're just going to cause more issues in the long run. So is it helpful? I mean, they're crazy helpful. They do exactly what they're supposed to do, and that's not their fault. Like, that is like the effect of the drug. But now, like, just don't be an idiot and run it all the time and say it's a miracle worker, because you'll have other issues.
Yep. Cool. So that's BPC, TB, not using those regularly. How do you guys feel? Like, I know we touched on L-Carnitine injections. Did you guys want to, I know it's not a peptide, but I'm assuming that the individuals are maybe putting that in the same category because it's injectable. So do you guys want to touch on like why that does what it does and why more people should probably be taking it than they do?
So I'll let David talk a lot about carnitine, because he is the goat of carnitine stuff. But as far as other peptides, most other peptides I just say run growth hormone, because they're just trying to replicate what growth hormone does. So run growth. Pretty much the best.
That's pretty much the best answer. 2 IU a day, whatever.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Like the only other peptide that I would say can be beneficial for the individual is the MK677, but not because of what it does with growth hormone. I think it's a shit replacement for growth hormone, but because of what it does with hunger. Some people get a ridiculous hunger drive with it, and if you're the person that needs more hunger, that's an easy way to get that done. Other than that, any other peptide is trying to give you growth hormone like effects, just go ahead and use growth hormone.
Yeah, like the super scrawny 220 guy that shows up looking like a raisin. That guy might need to eat more. He might have a use for MK677. I don't know what we're talking about, but
and so as far as like L-Carnitine goes, so the reason, the way I picked it up, like I'm sure some of your followers and stuff have followed Alex Kiko or know who he is. He was the original person that, like, this was like 5 years ago, where he actually put out like a huge, gigantic like podcast specifically on it. It's like an hour and a half long, and then he ended up making a book out of it, and people can go purchase that if they wanted to.
It's like $20.
Yeah, and anyway, that goes into all the really scientific shit, like all the detail and stuff like that. And the gist of it is this is what it does. It makes your androgens work better because it makes your binding constant and your binding affinity work in better relationship to each other with your androgen. So what that means is when you take some D-bol or some Anadrol or whatever, it binds to the androgen receptor and then it unbinds and it doesn't go away. What it does is it tumbles down your bloodstream and binds to another androgen receptor. And then once it sends its message, it's supposed to unbind and keep doing that until finally your body metabolizes it and you excrete it as its metabolites. The time that it spends attached to that androgen, the longer it spends there, the less time that androgen has to get stimulated again. So you want it to just go in just like a ship. It docks, it sends its signal and undocks. That is a very effective androgen. And you want it to be very magnetic to all androgens. So in other words, it's coming close to an androgen, and the moment it gets this close, boom, it gets sucked right in. Or
that's binding affinity.
Yeah. The moment it gets this close, it gets sucked right in. So that's binding affinity. Carnitine increases binding affinity. So now when your androgen is this close to the androgen receptor, it gets sucked in, and it decreases binding constant time. So the moment it sticks, the moment it comes off, and now it can go do that more and more times. So L-carnitine increases your androgen's ability by modifying those two things. L-carnitine also has a direct impact on being able to shuttle fatty acids into the mitochondria, because there's this thing called the L-Carnitine Shuttle, which everybody has. This is whether you're injecting it or not, you all have it. And its job is to bring fatty acids from outside the cell to inside the cell to be burned up and used for fuel. When you have large stores of L-carnitine, think of it like a train. Say you have one railroad car that gets full of fatty acids and brings it in. Well, now you have a train with thousands of carts. Now you can load up a lot of fatty acids and bring them all in to get burned up and used for fuel. That means that you will get leaner, easier. It also means that because you can utilize fats for fuel easier, you don't tend to get as hungry. Now you can stick to your dieting plan better. Now you can do things better. Or now you can train for 3 hours without having to feel like you're fucking hungry or zapped of energy, because you're using your own body fat for the training stimulus while you're not consuming food. That even goes a step further. When you sleep, you don't consume food. But if you have a large carnitine store, you can easily shuttle more fatty acids while you're sleeping to increase your ability to recover.
Especially with the little growth hormone right before you get
exactly. Yes. So L-carnitine.
Like the different things make the different things work better.
There's something to it.
Yeah. So that's the gist on L-carnitine. So essentially, it modifies all the things that we want modified. Just a little bit, we're talking percents or two, but that shit adds up, especially because you can run L-carnitine all damn year long, and you're not going to suffer, side effects from it. Things like that. So it's going to increase your work capacity, your ability to train longer, your ability to use fats for recovery, and it's going to
helps you recover better.
Yep, and it's going to modify how your androgens work. So those are all things that we want. Now, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna mention if you go listen to Al Kiekel's hour-and-a-half long, I think it really is like an hour-and-a-half long, just about carnitine. He actually talks about how, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, because I know you've listened to it probably 12 times or something crazy, but he talks about how it can be so effective that you might even be able to have half the androgen that you normally do, and it be just as effective as, so if you're running 600, it might be just effective as 300. Can we prove that? No, but that is something that can literally be that effective.
Yeah, for some people it definitely can, especially if just so people know, the only place you get carnitine is diuretically. So if you're a females respond extremely well to L-carnitine because they already undereat protein for the most part. It's very hard for them to eat, for one, their bodies aren't, they're not consuming 200 grams of protein every day. Some women can get close to that, but regularly most women aren't. So they're already on the under-fueled side when it comes to carnitine. And sometimes carnitine is most present in red meats. Sometimes people don't like red meat, so they're eating more chicken and more fish and shit like that.
And it's just more expensive too to get red meat. So I get that.
But anyway, so what I'm saying is, depending on the individual, that L-carnitine can definitely make that difference of now you respond that much better because you were under responding to begin with.
Right. Like you are turning yourself from a low responder to a higher responder to androgens, which is really freaking cool.
Yeah. And then that's the thing, like when you're an individual who is a high responder or a fast responder or whatever to androgens, and then you pair them with all of this extra stuff, it makes the process even more efficient, more faster, more rapid, whatever, and you get better results, better top end potential. And then we enter into areas where like we have no idea what the top end is because people haven't explored this. I genuinely believe like 99% of the powerlifting community is only very recently being turned on to this stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Like as far as how to use it and put it appropriately with the other things that they're doing.
Yes.
Yeah, because if you just throw this in whenever, it's not gonna like. It's still gonna be maybe a little helpful, but the way you time it out really makes it do what it does.
And I'll go on record and say like the carnitine and choline that I added in at the end of the showdown prep, that was an absolute game changer. Like it took my recovery from being like okay when you're squatting like 700 plus pounds for like 8 weeks in a row, being like okay, to being like I was waking up the next day and being like I feel great. Like at this point last year, I would have my squat day on Sunday, and then Monday I would take off because I didn't leave the couch. Because it would just, whether it destroyed my body or destroyed like my nervous system in terms of I felt so fried, I just couldn't do it. Now this past prep, I would have my squat workout, and then it would be like, Bree, you want to go do something? You want to like go just go do shit. I actually had energy to like go live my life.
And the mental capacity to do so and enjoy.
Yes.
Yeah. And the choline plays a huge part on that.
That's
like that whole combination there, carnitine and choline is outstanding, and I hope to deliver it soon, much more publicly. For right now, it's more of like an inner circle type of thing.
I was gonna ask, do you want to talk about our little Dragon Ball Z booster or not?
That's why I've been dancing around it and I haven't named it. So
yeah. Well, I mean, we can name it, and people will like. Let's put it this way: it's on the cusp. In fact, all I need to do now is get a hold of the person that you were just talking to when we first got on, so that we can get a website up.
But basically, if you don't know, that sucks for you.
yeah. So the labels are done officially, and they look freaking fantastic. And so now it's just a matter of designing a website to get a payment portal done, and then we'll be delivering it. So yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
So all in all, basically everyone who has made it this far, there's going to be a product link at the end of these relatively soon for stuff that you can add into your training year round that's going to make you able to recover faster, use your drugs better, fucking just be better, stronger, bigger, whatever.
Yeah. And the choline, let's just talk a little bit about choline, just to get people the grasp of what it's going to do.
And that so touch on choline, and then we'll probably bring it circle, because I think we're over an hour at this point.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, we're right there. So the choline aspect is the acetylcholine cycle. So that's a neurotransmitter, and that facilitates all other neurotransmitters, just so everybody knows how important acetylcholine is. And acetylcholine comes directly from cholinergic things. Now, you don't have to inject choline. I will tell people that you can take choline bitrate or alpha GPC, and you're going to get very similar effects because it is very bioavailable. The reason why I included it in the injectable with the carnitine is because of timing purposes. We inject it pre-workout or at night, and we want it in there flowing with the L-carnitine at the same rate at the same time the L-carnitine is hitting you. We want the choline hitting you. When you take it orally, there's a big disparity, like an hour or two difference between when it actually starts hitting the bloodstream and stuff like that. So that's the reason why. But what it does is it amplifies your ability to recycle acetylcholine, which is going to directly affect thought process, like literally just how quickly you can process information, how quickly, so it'll amplify proprioception, it'll amplify coordination, and it'll amplify your ability to think more clearly and actually contract muscles. So it's a big player on the brain, the nervous system, and how it ties to the neuromuscular junction at the muscular level. So you're amplifying the amount of electricity you can put down for power, and it's not burning you out. Everybody's had training set, well, not everybody, but if you've lifted remotely heavy and you've really tried to push yourself mentally, you can go there, but you can only go there very infrequently because you get burned out so easily from depleting your choline stores. And essentially what's happening is your body's just waiting for you to eat enough food to accumulate enough choline to do the recycling process to recycle and make more acetylcholine. When you can inject it, now it's a game changer because you essentially inject it before you work out and you're never going to run a deficit, or you inject it before you work out and right before you go to sleep. When you wake up the next morning, you didn't run a deficit, you're good to go. So now you feel mentally fresh and your nervous system feels mentally fresh and ready to go and move around and do what other shit that you need to do.
Yeah, like if you've ever had one of those super crazy heavy training days and you just feel like trash and you can't think and it's like your brain is completely fried. And I know Joe will attest to this too. You take this and you like wake up and you're like, oh, I'm good to go. Like you just feel significantly better. It's pretty crazy.
Yep. Yeah. And it was such a, speaking of like your body is waiting for enough food to have enough choline to like go there again, or acetylcholine to go there again. This was incredibly valuable later, like because I didn't cut going into the showdown. I just kind of like had to start monitoring myself a little bit harder just later in the training cycle, and then during the depletion and the water cut. This, I swear, this saved my life, because just as an example, like it was me, Brianni, Chad Penson, and Bria Penson, his wife. We were all staying together the week leading up to the meet. Everybody followed the same pretty much like principal water cut protocol. It's all the same basic stuff that we always do. But they pulled carbs, I pulled carbs. I would wake up and I'm like, I'm great. Let's go do shit. Like, what do you guys want to do? Like, we're in Vegas. Like, you want to go check this thing out? I know we can't eat, but like, let's go do stuff. And they'd all look at me like they wanted to cut my fucking head off because they were all suffering. And I talked to you a little bit about this, Jake, but like, I just kept, and I think I mentioned it to you too, David, but like, it was everybody else had just this incredible level of brain fog. And even though we were all in the same stuff, I kept waking up and being like, I'm good. And only not until like the Wednesday when I like switched to distilled water and like was just flushing everything out. I only then was I like, oh, it's kind of hitting me. Like, fuck. But up until that point, I was like, I feel great. I feel absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And I credit a lot of that to the KOK.
Absolutely. It is a game changer when it comes to like calorie restrictions and stuff like that. I feel like, yeah, we're talking about it in powerlifting, but I'm on the cusp of, because I work with all kinds of athletes. I'm on the cusp of bringing this to other athletics where this is much more the norm, like wrestling, MMA, that sort of stuff, where people are like super regimented about their eating and needing all kinds of mental enhancement along with, glycolytic type enhancement. And I'm like, this is a game changer for these types of people, like way, way more even the way you're expressing.
Yep, absolutely. Because all mine was I had to get the mental energy to get through the day or get through a workout of which like it's 2 hours long, but like let's say the actual work would only take place for like 40 minutes, like accounting for rest time or whatever. Think about it, how much of an effect that could have on someone who is fighting in the UFC. Yeah. Running a marathon, like a track and field athlete, like a football player, something along those lines.
Yeah. Real sports.
real. What I'm saying is real sports. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be great when it goes in on live, and hopefully people stay tuned for that. I'm sure they will.
Yeah, it'll be really cool. But yeah, for everybody David is the mad scientist from Wyoming. If you don't know him, reach out to him for your blood work and stuff, because he knows a lot about this stuff. It's really cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
And so, yeah, and Jake is the middle ground between chemistry, biochemistry, and fucking training sciences. And then I am the meathead that irresponsibly used drugs for a long time and is really good at training. What?
You know how to move well, though. That makes
exactly.
up for
Exactly. I know how to move. I know how to apply a lot of this stuff. And I'm a rational thinker with an open mind, which goes to which should be a fucking characteristic we all strive for. And that's basically why I have aligned myself with these individuals, because I am very confident in saying that they are smarter than I am in a lot of aspects. And the fact that I can take their knowledge, pass it on to you guys, and then hopefully you guys can apply it and then pass it on to others or refer people. Here, we can actually get people running responsible things when it comes to their drug protocols and living longer and living better, more happy, healthy lives, not being the individual who stays on trend for 2 years and burns their entire life down or something along those lines. So yeah, I don't know if that was the end. That might be the end. This is the fucking performance panel podcast. I had an idea as we were talking, because fucking ADHD brain, and Jake tells me I can't take Adderall anymore. But speaking of neurotransmitters, we'll get to that in another fucking panel. But what about the performance education discussion podcast, PED podcast, performance education discussion?
I like it. No, that's cool.
Where's my fucking marketing degree? God damn it! Jesus Christ!
Performance education. That's awesome.
Yeah, I dig it, and that's just like the logo is like PED, but like yeah.
There we go.
Good. We have a name.
No.
We have come up with a name.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Okay, thank you guys for tuning in. We're gonna end it. We will likely meet again 2 weeks from now, and this will hopefully be on all your fucking listening services like Spotify and iTunes, but that is a matter of me figuring out how to do that. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you later.
Later.